Good evening. This is the Cortez City Council regular meeting. Today is Tuesday, December 10th, 2024, and the time is 7:30 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask you all to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Linda, can we have the roll call?
Buffer.
Here.
Here.
Rule.
Here.
Dobry.
Here.
Randall.
Here.
Lewis.
Here.
Medina.
Here. All right, do we have approval of the agenda as presented or any amendments needed?
I move that council approve the agenda for December 10th, 2024.
Second.
Motion made by DeHaven and seconded by Lewis.
Lewis.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Buffer.
Aye.
Randall. DeHaven.
Aye.
Rule.
Yes.
Medina.
Aye. All right, we're moving on to number 2 on our agenda, the consent agenda. The listing under consent agenda is a group of items to be acted on with a single motion and vote. The agenda is designed to expedite the handling of limited routine matters by City Council. Either the public or council member may request that an item may be removed from the consent agenda at the time prior to council's vote. I'll ask if a citizen or council member wishes to have any specific item removed from the consent agenda for discussion after reading. A, approval of the council work session and agenda minutes for November 26, 2024. B, approval of the expenditure list for December 10th, 2024. C, approval of an application for a transfer of ownership for Once Upon LLC DBA Once Upon a Sandwich, owners Richard and Carolyn Hessom, to Once Upon a Sandwich LLC DBA Once Upon a Sandwich, owners Cameron and Kari Watson, located at 7 West Main Street, Cortez. And D, approval of a renewal application for a hotel and restaurant liquor license for Lake Street Lanes, Inc., DBA Lakeside Lanes, located at 410 Lakeside Drive, Cortez.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Dobry and seconded by Lewis.
Rule.
Yes.
Randall. Yes. Lewis.
Yes.
DeHaven.
Aye.
Buffer.
Aye. Aye.
Medina.
Aye. All right, we're moving on to number 3 on our agenda, public participation. There is no limit to the number of speakers, although public comment may be held to an overall time limit of 30 minutes. Speakers have a time limit of 3 minutes per person, may only speak once, and may not cede time to another commenter. No comment cards. All right. Seeing no comment cards, we'll move on to number 4 on our agenda, presentations. 4A is a presentation of a Purple Heart and Medal of Honor for Catalina Kat Moran and Novelyn Novi Moran in honor of their father, Sergeant Mike Moran, as well as presentation of the Chief's Certificate of Commendation to Cortez resident Amanda Darland. All right. Council's gonna move.
Good evening. We're going to go ahead and start with the Chief's Certificate of Commendation. This award is granted by the Chief to any member or citizen for an outstanding act or achievement that brings credit upon the office of a person, which involves performance above and beyond that required by the member or citizen. It is awarded to citizens who perform an outstanding act worthy of office recognition.
I'm Detective Cannon from Cortez Police Department. On September 15th, 2023, I was standing in the back parking lot of Cortez Police Department and heard rapid-fire gunshots ringing out. I knew of recent conflict between two groups of community members that had resulted in a shooting a couple days before at 702 North Market Street, which is where the sound was coming from. I proceeded to that location and observed multiple subjects running around in the street, extremely agitated. They were saying there had just been a shooting and one male's vehicle had been shot up. I was trying to get information out of them, but they were extremely uncooperative and volatile. Amanda approached me from across the street and said she had a video of the suspects and could show me on her phone, which was an immediate improvement in the volatile situation. Amanda providing this video later proved to be vital in identifying suspects and understanding the timeline of events. As Amanda was approaching me, she walked past the vehicle that had been shot and saw someone sitting in it. She screamed that someone was shot, and this was the first time I learned this, and I requested EMS. I immediately started attending to the victim, but the situation became even more volatile because the two uncooperative males that were already agitated escalated even more. The victim was sandwiched in the backseat of the car, and it was difficult to help her while she was in there. Amanda repeatedly asked me how she could help. Due to the male subject screaming, I was desperately trying to listen to my radio because I was listening for suspect information and also trying to listen for breaks in the traffic so I could call out as well. I was listening so hard that I couldn't give Amanda instructions about what to do. Additionally, two suspects from the shooting suspect's family returned to the scene and a physical confrontation occurred between them and the male subjects. I got the victim out of the car and laid her on the ground. Amanda was asking how she could help. This is all while people were crowded around and screaming at the top of their lungs. There was so much going on that I could not give instructions. Amanda was standing behind me and sensed what was going on and told me, "I'm going to get the gloves out of your pouch on your belt and I'm going to help you." Without stopping, I gave her a nod and she did so. Thank you. Repeatedly, the victim started losing consciousness and I knew she was dying. While I dressed the bullet wound to her leg, Amanda talked with the victim and made sure she stayed conscious. When she'd lose consciousness, Amanda would yell to her to stay with us and wake up. I personally believe this was absolutely integral to the victim surviving this incident because each time Amanda did it, the victim would come back to consciousness a little bit. I am recommending Amanda for this award because I believe she performed an outstanding act that was worthy of recognition. Knowing what I know now about the incident, she came into a volatile situation to assist me after having just witnessed that both males that were screaming at me had just been part of the violence. When I began to help the victim, she stepped in to help when everybody else escalated and worsened the conditions of the scene. She acted sensibly by telling me she would get the gloves out of my belt so she could help. She truly seemed to care about the outcome and care of the victim. She provided vital information that assisted in creating the timeline of events, which was extremely muddled since members of both groups were untruthful or deliberately interfering. This was all done at great risk to her own safety because I could not provide her any protection or instruction during the rapid deterioration of the scene. While I have been recognized for my actions that day, I personally feel that Amanda was an important part of the success of the rescue and the following investigation, and she deserves recognition. This is without question the most stressful scene I've ever worked, and Amanda did not hesitate to jump in and help. In a world where there is intense divide related to the activities of police, I will never forget hearing Amanda's voice behind me saying, "I'm going to help you," as I navigated one of the worst scenes I've ever worked. So thank you, Amanda.
In 1829, Sir Robert Peel established the London Metropolitan Police Force and became known as the father of modern policing. He produced a list of guiding principles that remain as valid today as when they were written 2 decades ago, or 2 centuries ago. And this one, I think, fits right in with Amanda. Quote, "The police are the public, and the public are the police. The police being only members of the public who are paid to give full-time attention to duties which are incumbent on every citizen in the interest of the community, welfare, and existence." Thank you. Amanda Darling. It is with gratitude and appreciation that we award you with the Chief's Certificate of Commendation for your actions during a shooting event on September 15th, 2023. During an active and rapidly evolving shooting incident, Amanda approached Officer Kristen Cannon to provide crucial video evidence. While doing so, she noticed a female in the backseat of a vehicle who had been shot, a fact Officer Cannon was unaware of at the time. Amanda immediately alerted Officer Cannon, enabling life-saving care to be provided and a call for EMS. According to the medical professionals, the victim may not have survived without Amanda's quick thinking and intervention. Amanda's courageous actions exemplify the vital role community members can play in critical situations. The Cortez Police Department is honored to recognize you for your willingness to intercede and assist a victim and the Cortez Police Department in this tragic event. It is my great honor on behalf of Chief Vernon Knuckles to present you with the Chief Certificate of Commendation Award. Amanda?
Good evening. I'm Rogelio Maynard, Patrol Lieutenant with the Cortez Police Department. I'm going to give a brief definition of the Purple Heart Award. The Purple Heart Award is awarded to employees who suffer serious bodily injury, serious online injury and line of duty death caused by an act of an aggressor, which is directly related to their law enforcement service, either on or off duty.
Purple Heart posthumously presented to Sergeant Michael A. Moran. On November 29, 2023, Sergeant Michael Moran demonstrated remarkable courage and dedication to duty during a traffic stop. Sergeant Moran was ambushed by the driver, who immediately exited his vehicle and opened fire on Sergeant Moran. Sergeant Moran was struck multiple times, yet was able to draw and return fire. He showed the highest level of courage as he continued to fight until succumbing to his injuries. Sergeant Michael Moran's actions and sacrifice reflect great credit upon himself, the Cortez Police Department, and law enforcement.
Hi, I'm Angelo Martinez. I'm the Detective Lieutenant for the Cortez Police Department, and I'm going to give the definition for the Medal of Honor. The Medal of Honor recognizes employees who have risked their lives in the line of duty or performed under life-threatening conditions above and beyond their required scope of duty while protecting the lives of others. The Medal of Honor is the highest award this office presents in recognition of personal bravery.
Police Medal of Honor posthumously presented to Sergeant Michael A. Moran. On November 29, 2023, Sergeant Michael Moran initiated a traffic stop. The driver of the stopped vehicle immediately exited and opened fire on Sergeant Moran. Despite being critically wounded by multiple gunshots, Sergeant Moran demonstrated exceptional valor by returning fire and engaging the subject in a courageous attempt to protect life and neutralize the threat. Even while mortally wounded, he exhibited the highest level of courage, selflessness, and dedication to the preservation of life. His conduct that day epitomized the ultimate commitment to public safety and service. We are grateful. If his daughters would come up, please.
And thank you all for being here for that. Now we have 2024 Employee Anniversary Awards.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council, and thank you for your participation in that award ceremony. So each year we give Years of Service Awards to employees who have been here for a set amount of time. We have several of those with us this evening, and as I call them up, if I could have them go over to the podium where our HR Director, Matt Kashner, is to receive a gift from the city, and then if you'll join or go through and receive or be received by the council. Those who are here this evening, Taylor Marston, 5 years, a patrol officer at the police department. Okay. Well, he was here, but now he's not. We'll move on. Another 5-year recognition for Joseph Yen, also a police officer.
Hey man, I got a pin for you here too.
At 20 years, Angelo Martinez, Detective Lieutenant with the Police Department. "25 years, Michelle Duvall, the Parks and Recreation Aquatic Supervisor. 30 years, Don Cornett, Public Works Street Foreman. I know this actually isn't really possible, but somehow she got her listed in the 30-year column. Carla Odell, the Court Administrator Clerk. And this one I know for sure can't be accurate, but somehow she ended up in the 45-year column, 45 years. Donna Thompson, Public Works Administrator. And we'd like to sincerely thank each of them for our service to the community and to the city of Cortez.
They might be a fail, so lower your standards.
Thank you. Dennis, would you like?
I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
No donut. Okay. We're going to move on to number 5 on our agenda, public hearings. 5A is ordinance number 1330, Series 2024. The second reading and public hearing of ordinance number 1330, Series 2024, an ordinance approving the Second Amendment to Professional Services Contract for Municipal Judge Services, presented by Drew Sanders, City Manager.
Yeah, good evening again, Mayor and Council. This is indeed the second reading of ordinance number 1330, Series 2024. Regarding the municipal court judge's salary that by our charter must be established by ordinance, and therefore we have presented to council as part of the 2025 budget, but also we need to formalize that via ordinance, suggesting that we raise the judge's salary up to $59,800 per year. Excuse me. and the current ordinance actually reflects a salary of $36,000. Now, this proposed salary increase is due to the increased workloads and demands of the municipal court. They have actually taken on additional duties on their own, including an outreach court, and now she is, or she or they, are handling juvenile cases as well. We explained that last time that the increase in cases is largely due to the functionality of the court and how it's operating. Now that law enforcement is sending many more cases that way, which is the way it should operate versus clogging up the state and the county courts. So this is a budgeted expense should the council choose to adopt this ordinance. And I would recommend that it go to you for your consideration and a public hearing.
All right, any questions or discussion before I open this for public comment? For Judge Pedia? Okay, I'll open this for public. Do we have anyone in the audience who'd like to make a comment? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public hearing section. I guess, are you about to make a motion? Okay, hold on. I just want to thank Judge Padilla for all the hard work she's done over the last few years. I think it's clear in the not just the busyness of her court, but the relationships that she's built and just the reduction in recidivism. That's that word? Okay. And just, thank you for really everything you've done in your professionalism, Beth, or Judge Padilla.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I move that council approve on second and final reading ordinance number 1330, Series 2024, an ordinance approving Second Amendment to the professional services contract for municipal judge services.
Second.
Motion made by Lewis and seconded by Dobry.
Randall. Dobry.
Aye.
Haven.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Brule.
Yes.
Buffer.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to 6 on our agenda, unfinished business. We have none. So 7 is new business. 7A is the 2025 Cortez Community Support Grants. Awarding our community support grants as determined by the 2025 Community Support Grant Review Committee. Presented by Drew Sanders, City Manager.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is regarding our annual community support grant. For most years, the City Council actually budgets an amount of money to go towards community organizations that preserve or enrich the health, education, welfare of our community. The community support organizations may receive grants to support activities and programs that are accessible to residents of the city of Cortez and encourage development of healthy community organizations. This year, we repeated the same model we did last year, where we convened a committee that also was represented, or City Council was represented by Councilmember Spruill and Councilmember Kefauver, and that was following a posting period that started in August of this year, and then applications were received and were due by October 18th. Then this year we received 26 grant applications totaling $109,715 in funding requests. The budget for this is $32,000, so we had to make some pretty difficult choices here. Almost all of them were very legitimate requests, and it was hard to boil it down to this. But with that, we have submitted a list of applicants and also nominees that the committee is recommending that the council adopt the recommendations and award these grants. And if it pleases the council, I'm happy to read off what those organizations are. I'll move on with that. First of all will be the Cancer Resource Alliance of Montezuma and Dolores counties. They requested $5,000. The committee is suggesting $4,000. Number 2, the Colorado Pet Pantry. and they requested $5,000. The committee suggests $1,500. Community Connections, requesting $2,500, recommended funding that at $2,500. The Four Corners Child Advocacy Center requested $5,000 and recommended $5,000. Four Corners Community Band, once again, requested $1,000, and it is recommended that they be awarded $1,000. Grace's Kitchen requested $5,000, recommend $5,000. Hope's Kitchen requested $5,000, recommend $5,000. Hospice of Montezuma requested $4,000, recommended $2,000. Leadership Montezuma Leadership Network requested $5,000, recommended $1,000. And then number 10 was the School Community Youth Collaborative, requested $5,000, recommend $2,500. And lastly, the Southwest Memorial Hospital Foundation requested $5,000, recommend $2,500 for a total of $32,000. I will submit that to the council for consideration.
Any questions or?
I move that council approve the 2025 Community Support Grants Awards as determined by the Grant Review Committee and authorize the mayor to sign the award letter for all grant applicants.
Second.
Motion made by Lewis and seconded by Sproul.
Dobry,
Aye.
Randall, Lewis,
Aye.
Rule,
Yes.
Buffer, Haven,
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. All right, thank you.
Council, and also thank you, Councilmember Sproul and Keith Auber. That was an awful lot of work, and we once again very much appreciate your efforts.
Yeah, thank you. All right, 7B on our agenda is 2025 janitorial bids for the Service Center, Welcome Center, City Hall, and Police Department. Presented by Brian Peckins, our Director of Public Works.
Okay, Madam Mayor and City Council, the city contracts out janitorial services for cleaning the Service Center, Welcome Center, City Hall, and Police Department. This year it was decided to rebid all janitorial services for the Service Center, Welcome Center, City Hall, and Police Department for the 2025 year. Specifications were drawn up and bids were received on November 20th, 2024. The city received 5 responses to the Service Center bid request, 4 responses for the Welcome Center, 4 responses for City Hall, and 3 responses for the Police Department. Following is an overview of the bids received for each building. I'll just go with the low bidder. At the Service Center, it was Redfin Janitorial for $20,320. At the Welcome Center, it was also Redfin Janitorial in the amount of $15,396. For City Hall, it was Monica's Cleaning Service for $38,000. And for the Police Department, it was also Monica's Cleaning Service at $48,000. Janitorial services are included in the budgets for each of these buildings. Staff recommends that council consider approving the 2025 janitorial bids to the low bidder for each building as shown below. Service Center, Redfin Janitorial, $20,320. Welcome Center, Redfin Janitorial, $15,396. City Hall, Monica's Cleaning Service, $38,000. And Police Department, Monica's Cleaning Service at $48,000. Subject to any questions?
Have we used any of these services from these certain people before?
Yes.
We're familiar with them.
Yes.
And even though they were the lowest bidder, they're a good fit for our city.
Yeah, and actually, compared to last year, the Service Center and the Welcome Center, the bids were actually lower than last year. For the Police Department and City Hall, they were a little bit higher, so kind of a mixed bag.
Good, awesome.
Brian, some of those bidders did not submit for some areas. Do we know why that was the case?
I don't. I can check and try to find out, but I don't know why. Okay.
Thank you.
I move that council award the 2025 janitorial bids to the following bidders and authorize the city manager to negotiate and sign a professional services agreement on behalf of the city with each. Service Center, Redfin Janitorial LLC, $20,320. Welcome Center, Redfin Janitorial LLC, $15,396. City Hall, Monica's Cleaning Service, $38,000. Police Department, Monica's Cleaning Service, $48,000.
Second.
Motion made by Randall and seconded by Dobry.
Lewis.
Aye.
DeHaven.
Aye.
Randall.
Aye.
Buffer.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Rule.
Yes.
Medina.
Aye. All right, we're moving on to 7C on our agenda, 2025 refuse side load truck lease.
Okay, Madam Mayor, City Council. In 2024, the city initiated the transition to residential side load truck technology within its refuse fleet by introducing a new truck. This effort has allowed for the establishment and refinement of routes as well as the collection of operational data. Currently, there are 1,600 residential services that have yet to be incorporated into the side load system. The addition of another side load truck will facilitate complete coverage of all residential pickups. For context, a rear load truck utilizes 2 crew members and can handle approximately 400 residents a day, while a side load truck utilizes a single driver and can handle approximately 900 residential services a day. The Refuse Department is seeking approval for the city to lease 1 new side load garbage truck. Upon the conclusion of the lease, the City of Cortez has the option to either sell the vehicle to the leasing company, utilize it for other municipal purposes, or sell it to a third party. In collaboration with General Services, the Refuse Department has assessed multiple alternatives via the Sourcewell Cooperative Bid Agent, thereby ensuring adherence to the city's competitive bidding standards. Key considerations include availability timelines, ensuring the equipment can be delivered within the fiscal constraints, and warranty and service. A big factor is proximity to the service center for maintenance not covered by in-house technicians. We had 3 bids from Coyce Brothers. Acquisition cost is $423,000, $443. The closest warranty center is Farmington. For Elliott Equipment, their acquisition cost was $414,000, and their closest warranty center was Flagstaff, which is quite a ways away. And then Ferris Machinery came in with an acquisition cost of $432,000, and their closest warranty center is Farmington. After careful consideration of the submitted quotes, it has been concluded that the offer from Coyce Brothers, though not the lowest quote, is the most cost-effective solution for the city for the following reasons. The continuity and compatibility with parts requirements align well with the existing Heil side load truck in our fleet. Parts on the shelf would fit both trucks. We have 2 certified Heil technicians on staff, one in Public Works and one with the General Services shop. Downtime incurred by potential long-distance repairs. Towing estimates provided to our shop supervisor were as follows: $850 one way to Farmington, $2,800 one way to Flagstaff. So if we had to send it, it would be a considerable cost. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly Koski to talk about the fiscal impacts.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we did have 3 responses from leasing companies that we've all worked with before. As you can tell, Clayton Holdings, which is also known as Commerce Bank, came in with the lowest APR of 4.6. We've worked with them in the past on the leases that we did for the golf course mowers. They're very knowledgeable about tax-exempt leasing. Their timing and response time is very good. And they also came in with a total acquisition cost, which was the lowest of total $497,578.40. The reason their acquisition cost was lower, not only because of the APR, but also the first payment that they require in the 7-year lease cycle is only $42,344. After that, the next 6 lease payments will be the $75,872. I recommend that we work with them again. We've had really great service and really great customer service from them. I think that is the best option for the lease that we have presented before you this evening. Any questions?
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, council. All bidders have complied with the city's specification and possess the required chassis and work bodies to adhere to our timeline. Notably, Coyce Brothers has submitted the most competitive quote while providing a confirmed local warranty for any service matters not addressed by our maintenance facility. Staff recommends that council authorize the city manager to negotiate and the mayor to sign a 7-year lease agreement with Clayton Holdings LLC to lease one side-load refuse truck from Coyce Brothers in the amount of $423,443. Subject to any questions.
What's the arrangement with our current side load truck? What lease? How many years? Who provided the truck, etc.?
Hello, Colby Early, City of Cortez Superintendent. So the current side load that we have goes back to our original lease as part of our first truck package that we bought. There was 4 units at 5 years. So it'll mature right around 2028, I do believe.
Okay, so, sorry, how many side load versus the rear load trucks do we have?
So our first leg was, the 4 trucks that we bought, was to replace the rear loads that we had in our fleet and then add 1 side load. That was the first step in our modernization process. The second side load, that's just going to kind of buffer out, round out the first portion of our modernization process. That'll kind of give you a backup to the first side load. The first side load, it kind of set a tone, if you will, so we could kind of get the routes implemented, find out what the shortfalls were, what strengths, weaknesses, go ahead and get everything lined out and develop the routes. After we developed the routes, then we were looking for the second side load so we could go ahead and get the rest of the town on that. Whenever you have those units, you start the process of transitioning away from your rear load services.
Sorry.
Mayor, if I can just interject one other thing, would it be appropriate to perhaps ask what the efficiency difference is with these 2 vehicles so we can demonstrate that to council why that matters?
Most definitely. Well, it's not just about efficiency, it's also about safety. They're a much more safe unit. It only takes 1 individual, of course, to operate it. There are, a learning curve, if you will, and that's what we went with the first time. We had 2 individuals that were already pre-trained on those units. Now we have 4 individuals that are trained on that unit. But you're looking at being able to service 900 stops in a day with 1 individual. It's a long day, 9-hour day, but 900 stops in a day versus 400 stops on the rear load with 2 individuals.
I have a comment. I really commend you for the fact that it's not the lowest bid, but sometimes the lowest bid isn't the best bid. And you explained to us very well how we're going to save money in the long run. And we appreciate that here in council, that we know why we're spending more money. We're spending more money to save more money, and you guys did a really good job, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
I guess my question was around the fact that you mentioned we had 2 certified Heil technicians, and I assume that's a good thing. One of the things that occurred to me is that if this new truck were a Heil truck, that in terms of familiarity with the people that operate the truck, and then also just the cost of training someone on a specific vehicle would probably be a plus as well. But maybe you could answer for me what a certified Heil technician actually is.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So one of our weaknesses as our community is our geographical isolation, but it's also one of our strengths. So we look to try to certify individuals in-house anytime that we can. We're also a McNeilus warranty center with our other trucks, and we just do that for cost-saving measures. Whenever you have certified Heil technicians on staff, what that means is they open up the system to you. Now, the Heil is actually the work body, not the chassis of the truck. So those are two different units as far as industry is concerned. But they open up the codes to you, and they allow you to go into the system to repair those yourself, rather than calling a mobile service technician. In this case, Heil Mobile Service Tech would either be from Farmington if they have them available, but more than likely from Denver to come down and work on those units. So having two staff individuals on hand, not only do you get to train other individuals as to how to better utilize the equipment, but then you get to take cost-saving measures as to, working on or having access to those codes and working on that unit yourself.
That seems like a huge plus to me, so thank you for letting me know what that was.
You're very welcome.
I move that council authorize the city manager to negotiate and the mayor to sign a 7-year lease agreement on behalf of the city with Clayton Holdings LLC to lease one 2025 Autocar Heil 30-yard side load refuse truck from Coyce Brothers Equipment in the amount of $423,443.
Second.
Motion made by Dobry and seconded by Kiefhoffer.
DeHaven,
Aye.
Dobry,
Aye.
Kiefhoffer,
Aye.
Randall, Lewis,
Aye.
Rule,
Yes.
Medina.
Aye. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, we're going to move on to resolution number 18, series 2024, approval of approving the 2025 fee schedule for the city of Cortez, presented by Linda Smith.
Good evening, City Council. Before you tonight is resolution number 18, series 2024. It adopts the 2025 fee schedule for all the city departments except for the airport, which is a separate item after this. Attached to the packet memo includes resolution 30, series 2023, which shows the fees that were adopted for 2024. Also included in the packet were two additional resolutions that have been adopted this year. One was regarding the public records fees that changed mid-summer, along with roadway patches that were added in as well. And then in July 23rd, 2024, the water fees were changed. So those were the two changes that were different from the original resolution adopted last year. City staff is present to speak of their changes that they're recommending, which are in your packet, and it's highlighted with yellow of any of the changes that were made from last year that are being recommended this year. Staff recommends that council approve resolution number 18, series 2024, a resolution adopting the 2025 fee schedule for the city of Cortez. And I think each of the staff members are here that have city changes. Parks and Rec and Economic Development, and who else is changing? Yeah.
All right, do we want to start with Parks and Rec? Thank you, Creighton.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Creighton Wright, I'm the Parks and Recreation Director. I'll go through our 4 proposed fee changes for 2025. They include a rec center resale pass, increasing our private cart fee at the golf course, setting a fee for both preschool and volleyball, 2 new programs for us, and creating an individual participant fee for both the rec center and the outdoor pool for the swim team. So circling back to the first one, rec center resale pass. We've been asked over the last several years from both RV parks as well as hoteliers in the area if we could create a smaller pass. Right now, currently our pass is a 20 punch pass, less punches, but for their participants or their stayers that are there for 3, 4, 5 days or a week and have access to the rec center. As you're probably aware, many hotels and even some of the RV parks have a small fitness area, but it doesn't compare with what we have at the rec center. So that's been the request. So this year we're creating this 5 punch adult pass, which we're going to sell to the individual business establishments for $25 that they turn around and sell to their participants for $30. So they're still paying the full amount of the pass. But the difference in that is that each of the RV park or hotelier will keep that $5 difference. It gives them an incentive for selling those passes. We don't know how many we're going to sell. We're just kind of guessing that based on the interest that we'll sell in the neighborhood of 20, and that'll generate about an extra $500 in revenue to the rec center. So that's the first adjustment that we're proposing for this year. The second one is increasing the fee for the private cart fee at the golf course. So generally speaking, when someone goes to play golf at the golf course, they will either walk or use a cart. The pro shop has carts available to rent. We do have a large handful, roughly 80 passes that are available for individuals who have their own carts and want to use their own carts at the course. Initially, when the private cart fee was created several years ago, the intent of it was that the revenue that was generated from that will go towards building new cart paths. And this last year, the Golf Advisory Committee brought this item back up and wants us to be more focused on dedicating that revenue towards private cart fees. And so with that, the idea of increasing the fee seemed a bit more palatable for those who had private cart fees. And last year, when we increased our Parks and Rec and golf fees across the board, the private cart fee was the only fee that was not increased. So this year, with the idea that we're a little bit more focused on putting that revenue towards building more cart paths, it seemed more acceptable to propose an increase to that fee. So the fee increase is approximately $75, bringing the total fee to $750 for those that have a private cart fee. And we expect with the 80 cart passes that are available, it would generate approximately another $6,000 that would be go towards building more cart paths at the golf course. The third category of fee increases is to set fees for 2 new programs that we propose to offer in 2025, a preschool program and a volleyball program. These items, for the preschool program, it is for a 12-week session, both once offered in the spring and once offered in the fall. And that would be a fee of $150 per month. Because it is 12 weeks, that total fee for that 12 weeks would be $450. We're breaking it into monthly chunks to make it a bit more affordable and reasonable for parents. So $150 per month, $450 for the total session. That program is proposed to cover 50% of its costs with 10 spots available. It would generate approximately $18,000 in revenue for the entire year. So that's, again, the 2 sessions, one in the spring and one in the fall, generating $18,000 in revenue. That's about half the cost of the total program. The second new program that we're offering is a girls-oriented youth volleyball program. We're setting the fee for that the same as our other 2 youth sports, other youth sport, which is basketball, which would be $30 per participant. We anticipate our first year of offering that program to have 40 participants, generating $1,200 in revenue. The last new fee is a fee for the individuals for swim team. This is the Water Dragons swim team that both starts at the rec center. They practice there for 2 months, April and May. Then they transition to the outdoor pool where they practice there in the months of June and July. I have been prompting and having conversations with the swim team for the last 2 years that this fee was coming, and was very clear about it as we were in last year's season. As we moved into this year's season, I've already talked with our board president in November, and they are, as a team, ready for this fee to go into place. The intent of the fee is to cover the cost of our staff that is there, generally speaking, only for the swim team. Both for the rec center, they end up using 5 of the 6 lanes while they're in the rec center, and when they transition over to the outdoor pool, they are the only user in the pool because they come in the early morning time period. So the revenue generated here is directly to offset our staff costs. The fee is pretty straightforward. It's a $20 individual fee for the rec center, so that's 2 months in the rec center for use of the pool, $20, as well as $20 for the use of the outdoor pool for that 2-month time period. We expect that the rec center portion of that fee would generate about $1,000. It's 50 participants is what we expect, with the idea that there are several individuals on the swim team that they have family memberships, and their membership would already be covered as a part of their family membership, so not as many people would be using that. And for the outdoor pool, we expect that it would be approximately 75 participants, generating about $1,500. So that is an overview of the fees proposed, or fee adjustments proposed in Parks and Rec. Again, a quick overview. That's a rec center resale pass for RV parks and hoteliers, increasing our golf cart private fee to generate more revenue for building cart paths in the future, setting fees for preschool and volleyball, and charging the swim team an individual pass for those participating in the rec center and the outdoor pool. Take any questions that council may have.
I'm assuming you're going to target all the RV parks in the county?
Yes, eventually. We have specific requests from 3 of them. So we'll definitely focus on those 3 first, and then if there's others that are interested, we certainly can branch out from there.
Okay. I think that's a great idea.
We're delivering what they have asked for, so hopefully it goes off well.
All right. Thank you, Creighton.
Creighton, I have a question.
Sure.
It's a little bit of a question and a little bit of a comment, and I'm putting it out there for not to be critical, but just to sort of clear the air a little bit, because I think a little bit of clarification needs to happen regarding the golf pass situation for the carts. So it's my understanding that historically for about 8 years or so, and please correct me if I'm wrong in all of this, but for about 8 years there was a, quote, handshake agreement that was made with the city and the private cart owners. And during that time, up until, I can't say historically about how much money they've put into this fund so that they can drive their own golf cart on the golf course. But last year, the fee was about $600 a cart. And there's about 80 carts that are out there. So that generates like $48,000 that goes into the general fund. And it was the understanding of a lot of the people who were involved in this initial agreement, unofficial agreement, that the money for that was going to go towards cart path improvements, period. It was supposed to go towards improvements, maintenance, and development. And it didn't happen. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm just trying to get this out in the open, because I think blight is good for a lot of it, for everything. So we've got $48,000 into it last year, and who knows how much the other 5 or 6 or 7 years. But there's a lot of money that went into the general fund that was supposed to go for golf cart improvements. And path improvements. So now we're proposing an increase of $75 a cart to bring it up from $600 to $675 a cart, which is going to generate another, what,
Roughly $6,000.
roughly $6,000. So 40, okay. I'm sorry, maybe my math is wrong. That's 675 times 80, isn't that 60,000? Anyway, it's going to generate more money. And so the money that has been put in all this time is gone. It didn't go to golf cart improvements with the exception of not as much as it was supposed to, put it that way. And so now we're increasing the fees, and we're saying with the increased money that the golf cart people are paying, you're going to get $6,000, but forget that initial arrangement that happened. So I'm just bringing out something I believe is a discrepancy, and I'd like to see a little bit more formalization of whatever the agreement is, so that people, when they're paying their $675 a year to drive their own golf cart, are going to get their money's worth. Thanks for hearing me and replying.
And Madam Mayor, Councilmember Randall, I'll just quickly address that. The Golf Advisory Committee brought this item up in the last year, and they have reviewed a draft memo that Manager Sanders and I have been working on. We have one last step we need to do before we formalize it, and that is to bring in our Finance Director, Kelly Koski, into the mix and make sure that she's on board with it. It is a goal of this year to formalize that as you're requesting, and we will have a little bit more solid footing on the arrangement as we move forward.
The only point again in all of this is that you're asking them to pay another $6,000 into it, and everything that they put into it, with the exception of what we just approved a few months ago to move forward into next year, the project. I'm just saying it just seems a little bit not fair.
Has there been no maintenance on the paths for the last few years or additions?
So, Madam Mayor, our paths are gravel paths for the most part, and so there is, I'd say, minimal maintenance that has happened. Certain years there's better maintenance that has occurred, but really I think what Councilmember Randall is referencing is that there is an expectation that the gravel paths would turn into a hard surface, whether that's concrete or asphalt, and that is really, I think, the biggest challenge that we've had in the last roughly 8 years, that there hasn't been significant, I'll say, enhancements to the cart paths, which is what the expectation was.
If I can just add a few comments to that, going back more than 8 years. The problem is there was never anything that was written. And so rumors are all over the place, and that really happens at the golf course. But I will say, in regards to improvements, I don't know what the time frame is, but there was concrete put all around the clubhouse. They widen that for the golf carts. It loops around in a horseshoe manner. And then, we have to remember that we're having $130,000 somewhat dollars to start those cart improvements on hole number 10 to 11 and on green number 2 to 3.
Right.
I'm sorry, how much was that?
I think it was around 130,000. I thought it was.
I don't remember the number off the top of my head. I can look it up and get back to you if you'd like.
Oh, no.
It was 100 plus. I don't remember the exact number.
So that seems much greater than I was recollecting.
I mean, I guess it's unfortunate that the agreement a while ago wasn't recorded or made official, so it's hard to hold the city accountable, but it sounds like you're ready to commit to that and make it formalized. And so I can see why you're raising the fees, because that's going to be an expensive project regardless. So this is probably not enough to cover the entire cost of that anyways.
No, it'll certainly be a multi-year project to try and complete the cart paths throughout the course. And this year, the intent this year was to put a fairly solid down payment in that the amount of money that's dedicated, I don't remember the number off the top of my head, whether it's 120, 130, it's somewhere in that range for this upcoming year, with the idea that that is several years worth of cart fee revenue going towards the cart path improvements for this next year as a means of, I'm going to say, use it as a down payment, a social down payment, if you will.
Yeah, cool.
So given the increase in usage over the last few years of the golf course, I know this has been floated around a few times, but is it possible, it's my understanding the golf course operation is nearly break even. Is it possible that at some point in the kind of near future, it may become an enterprise fund in and of itself, sort of like the rec center?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Kiefhofer, that is a topic that I have on my list of goals to talk through this year with Manager Sanders and Finance Director Koski. There are a lot of implications when we take something like the golf course and put it into an enterprise fund. Some unintended consequences that we need to be aware of, and we need to study that this year. And then my timeline is by the end of this year to give a review back to Manager Sanders to then provide direction on where we go with it. I'll just say there are a lot of costs of the golf course that are being sheltered outside the golf course that, should we create an enterprise fund, would have to be absorbed by that enterprise fund, and we'd have to figure out a means to pay for that stuff. So as an enterprise fund, fees are likely to go up significantly in order to cover those costs, is my quick back of the napkin kind of an assessment. So it's not something I think we need to rush into. We need to take some time and really think about this and make sure that we understand the implications and make a conscious decision about the future of golf, I think, broadly in the community. So, Madam Mayor, if there are no other questions for me, I'll turn it over to next in line.
Okay, great. Community and economic development, or?
Good evening. I was a little taken by surprise there. So the only change, major change, is the cash in lieu fee amount. And you want me to go, it's pretty complicated, but I can go over how we generate that. It is a significant change. It's basically doubling. But essentially, the land use code requires how we develop that fee. So in the code, it tells us the methodology, and I can go over that, but essentially we're looking at the market value of acres. Let me make sure I get this right. So that we have to figure out the, the market value based on the last 5 years of raw land adjacent to the city. So it got complicated, and the spreadsheet you have is missing some kind of important things. But what we did was had GIS identify all the land sales in the last 5 years within 3 miles of the city, eliminate the city. So we're only looking at the donut hole around the city. And then because it speaks to raw land, we eliminate every sale that occurred in a subdivision in that land outside the city, okay? And then we threw out the highest one and the lowest one, just because if you have a very, very small parcel, it's sort of unfair to do a per acre land value. And the lowest one, just because that was generally a super large parcel, and come up with the average. So the average, using those figures, came to $26,216 per acre. So that's the average per acre value in land raw land surrounding the city. We set the cash in lieu fee at that, and I don't know how, we haven't used that a whole lot, but the idea with the cash in lieu fee is that if you're doing a subdivision, you are required by code to dedicate 5% of the land for park and recreation purposes. If the land's not suitable, or as usually happens, it's less than an acre in size that you'd be required to dedicate, we can ask for a fee of cash in lieu of that land dedication. Just if your math hats aren't on, to get a 1 acre required dedication, 5%, you would have to have 20 acres of land that you are subdividing. So 20 acre subdivision, you're required to dedicate 1 acre of land. If you do the fee in lieu instead, the fee comes out to, the value of land, the $26,000. So we're setting the fee at what it calls out as, based on that $26,000 per acre, of $1,310 per acre. And what that means is, for example, if you had a 10-acre subdivision, it's $13,010 per acre that you have for the 10 acres. So total 10-acre subdivision, $13,000 in land dedication. 20-acre subdivision, $26,218 per subdivision. Smaller than that, which is most of our subdivisions in the city, would be based on that per acre. So if you had 5 acres, it's 5 times 1310. How'd I do? Make sense? Mm-hmm. Any questions?
Again, could you kind of tell how often that's used? Is it used?
It hasn't been used since I've been working here,
Yeah.
because we haven't had major subdivisions, or so until someone comes in with a larger subdivision, we would not use that.
And I'm assuming we would prefer cash in lieu versus a land dedication to the city of some sort.
It really would depend. If there were land that was suitable for a trail, or connected to an existing trail, or was otherwise valuable, yes. But I think in most circumstances, you'd be asking for the fee.
Does right-of-ways count as?
Not for roads, no.
Okay. Yeah, when's the last time we had a subdivision?
No, was someone saying Brandon's Gate, or, I don't.
Pre-crash?
Yeah, probably pre-2009. I've talked to a few people that are thinking about it, so maybe.
Can I ask council a question? The exemption that's listed under B1, 2, and 3, those seem rather vague to me. And I mean, it's fortunate this doesn't happen very often, but those seem very vague to me.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. The exceptions, the requirement may be waived, right? For under B1, 2, and 3, those seem rather vague and subjective to me.
Are you looking in the land use code?
Yes.
Yeah, on this this land sales spreadsheet,
Okay, sorry, I'm on the fee schedule here. It is vague, and honestly, this is being addressed in the new land use code anyway.
Thanks.
We just have to set a number based upon what's out there. We're likely not even going to use it.
And I totally agree. I looked at those and said, would you approve a subdivision that doesn't meet the comprehensive plan? Yeah.
Yeah, and we need to be more clear on what that actually goes to.
Okay, we'll move on to Public Works.
Okay, Madam Mayor, City Council, we've got a few changes to the water and refuse fees. As infrastructure needs and material costs change, it is imperative that rates and fees are evaluated and adjusted periodically to maintain the current level of services and plan for future needs. Based on the discussion with City Council during the work session on November 26, we are recommending that volume charge rates be increased by 5% for all user types. This increase will be applied to the volume charge rates for single-family, residential, multifamily, commercial, and water dock services. The base rate for all user types will remain at the established 2024 value and will not change. The water rate fee schedule has been further modified to include new water tap fees for taps measuring 3 inches and larger. These tap fees are newly introduced and were not part of earlier fee schedules. Previously, they were only categorized as negotiable. For refuse, we just have a few minor changes. On the one-time locking dumpster fee, we're going to increase that charge from $65 to $75 per lock. And a one-time bear cart setup is $50 per poly cart. And an easement alley cleanup fee, $150 per cleanup. An increase in the water rate volume charges is anticipated to yield an estimated additional revenue of around $190,000 as derived from forecasted revenue predictions. Modifications to the fees associated with the refuse department are expected to have a negligible effect on their total revenue. Nonetheless, these adjustments will sufficiently cover the expenses associated with staff time and materials pertinent to those particular fees. So, subject to questions? Thank you.
Any other departments? Clerks?
You skipped over the plumbing.
Yeah, I think Sean Canada's here for the plumbing.
Sean, if I could jump in, can we make sure your mic's hot?
Is that better? Oh, yeah.
Way better.
Perfect.
The Community and Economic Development Department is recommending an increase in the price of mechanical and plumbing permit fees to be more in line with our other permit prices. Our standard building permit prices change slightly every year based on the International Code Council's published average square footage price estimates. We increase our set price permits for decks, portable storage buildings, et cetera, every few years to keep pace with increasing costs. We have not changed our mechanical or plumbing permit fees for several years, and these current fees do not cover the cost of the required processing and inspections. The increase would be residential mechanical permits are proposed to increase from a base fee of $25 to $30, and residential plumbing fees are proposed to increase from $30 to $35. The commercial mechanical fees will be based on the cost of the project costs for the building permit fees chart. So essentially, again, our base permit fee for the plumbing permits would go to $35 and mechanical fees would go to $30. And yes, this would be an overall increase in funds to our department of, on an average year, $400 to $500. Yeah.
Help pay for that extra position? right, thank you, Sean.
You bet.
Okay. Any more questions or discussion from council, or do we want to make a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that council approve resolution number 18, series 2024, a resolution adopting the 2025 fee schedule for the city of Cortez.
Second.
Motion made by Kiefhoffer and seconded by Lewis.
Brule,
Yes.
Kiefhoffer,
Aye.
DeHaven,
Aye.
Dobry,
Aye.
Randall,
Aye.
Lewis,
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. Thank you, staff. All right, we're going to move on to resolution, or 7E on our agenda, resolution number 21, series 2024. It's a resolution approving Cortez Municipal Airport schedules of fees and charges, presented by Jeremy Patton, our airport director.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. As you recall, last year was the first year that the airport had a modern and legitimate schedule of fees and charges. We developed a 8 to 9 page guiding document that uses industry standards, local input and review by staff, city manager, city attorney. You guys approved it last year. Prior to that, the only fee schedule that was ever documented over 30 years was documented twice through a resolution was a landing fee. In last year's schedule of fees and charges, we used a scheduled or tiered rate schedule for the landing fees. And also last year, we took like counter service lease rates, communication site fees, terminal lease, call out fees for staff, classroom use fees, flight simulator, because we just got the flight sim. We basically brought everything to modern standard, and from there, we're building off of that. So taking what we implemented last year, there are very little changes because we've brought up our fees to a modern and realistic rate for our area. In addition to that, we are implementing a parking fee structure. As you recall, the parking lot was reconstructed. We are completely done with that project. We have on the shelf a design for the overflow lot, but we did not include that because of budget reasons. But with the parking lot, if you recall, when we did the workshop, the budget workshops, the council workshops, one of the things we agreed on that the airport would benefit as an enterprise to charge for parking. And so we implemented the pay system into the contract. We have all that technology built in with the conduit underground, the magnet loops, the ticket kiosks, the drop arms. We've got the website set up. We can monitor it. We've been monitoring it for 2 months now. We've been working out any kinks. I've been training my guys on it, my staff. We're reducing the speed limit down the county road to reduce chances of collisions. So we're working with the sheriff's department on that. But the downside of that for some is that we're going to start charging for parking. The positive side of that is the benefit to the enterprise of the airport, right? So that revenue, and I'm glad to go into finer details if you choose to ask those questions. I just want to, kind of bring it up as so everybody's aware that that revenue comes back to the airport. We help our staff requirements. That's offset some of the landside expenses that the federal and CDOT aeronautics don't help us with on the air side. So like the runway, taxiways, all that gets grant funding. But for building hangars, for leasing out, for upgrading our signs and our parking lot, the terminal, a lot of that's not grant eligible. So this revenue will help offset some of that. So you see in your packet, there's the memo, which was a little bit of a modification of last year's memo, not many changes. But in the schedule of fees and charges, the last page, there's almost a full page explaining the parking rates. And unless there's any, disagreement, we're welcome to redo them. But we went through city management and finance. We basically looked at, okay, this is kind of a reasonable rate. I proposed it because it's incorporating industry standards, but being fair to our area. We're not charging $50 a day like Denver or $15 a day like Junction, $9 a day in Durango. We're starting out at $4. First hour's free, grace period, $4 a day, and a max of 7, with a max of 7 days. So it's basically $4 per day, up to 7 days, drops to $3 a day. Then after 14 days, drops to $2 a day. So a lot of people that stay here longer, they're getting somewhat of a discount, their car's parked. Now, there are transient pilots or FBO operators maybe they fly their own aircraft. There's about 12 to 15 vehicles that are left there. We would do like an annual pass of $250, and they can leave their vehicle there, and we kind of help them with security cameras and eventually a covered parking down the road if we can offset that cost. So that's the biggest change to the schedule of fees, and that's why we're doing it. Any questions, friction on that? I mean, I'm glad to answer those questions if you have them.
Jeremy, I just have a question on how you establish those fees. I think it's pretty low,
Yeah.
which is a great way to start, but just how you came up with that $4.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple process. I reference a lot of anything we do out here that involves like agreements or earning revenue or in implementing policy or structure that goes through not only local but for CDOT Aeronautics and the FAA, because there are grant assurances that say you can't be unreasonable in what you charge, right? Now, they don't really get that involved in landside, but they do understand that if we do something landside that impacts the airport's use and operations, like if we deter people from using our airport, why are we funding you? So you look at industry standards, you look at economic status of comparable economies. Like Durango's a comparable airport, but it's not a comparable economy. So as a scale, Durango's making a lot more money and doing a lot more traffic, so they're not a good comparison. But you look at airports like Alamosa, and we're in much better position. We're trending to be more busy, and the communities economically, the airport seems to be generating more into the economy. So I didn't want to start out with a crazy fee. Over the year, it will probably progress into a larger fee, but we want to be fair to our users that are benefiting from an essential air service contract, cheap airfare. And we don't want to, take advantage of that. They're paying cheap airfare. Let's gouge them with parking fees. And some airports do that. I want to just start at a reasonable rate to begin with and see how this goes. There's going to be some pushback. And if you guys recommend we charge more later, we can absolutely do that. But it's an industry analysis, basically.
Also have a question on the landing fees, and you kind of oriented me on this when I came out to visit you a month or so ago. But here it says landing fees are for planes above 4,000 pounds?
Correct.
So give me an idea of what that would be, what kind of plane that would be.
So start around 4,000 pounds, you start getting into like smaller turboprop aircraft that are used for business use, aeromedical aircraft. They're at 5,000 to 9,000 pounds. So they have more impact on your asphalt, on your paint striping, the prop wash, jet wash, whatever the case may be. Some small jets are as light as 6,000 pounds. Now, 4,000 pounds is a standard number when you're getting into training aircraft. People that maybe they own their own aircraft, they're not necessarily millionaires by any means, but they're based here. Most of your small aircraft are under 4,000 pounds. So we exempt based aircraft, we exempt training aircraft, we exempt military, contract fire, regardless of weight. I should specify that. But that's a standard number. Now, when you get into the really busy airports that charge landing fees that are bigger, like Denver, Flagstaff, Durango, theirs starts at 12,000 pounds because they get a lot more of that traffic than they do the lighter traffic, in a nutshell. But it's about impact on the facility.
Well, I'm glad to see the hour grace period, because I took my dad to the airport when he flew out of here, and I parked and I wanted to go in with him, and but I understand the need for a cost or a fee for the parking.
Well, and one thing I want to do to help, I've been a little bit behind on my own initiative or drive to get this done, but we need to generate like a PSA, and we need to get it out there that not only that we're charging for parking next year, but we implemented that turnaround, and it's a pretty small turnaround. But for Cortez, it's a huge upgrade. So there's a pickup drop-off zone, but in that, if you go past it, there's what we're calling an aircraft viewing area. We're trying to keep people from parking there and leaving their vehicles so we don't have to eventually tow them. But that's a good spot to park if you're making phone calls, or it's right there by the airline ramp. You can view your family member getting on the plane, saying bye, all that stuff, take pictures. So just so you know, and I want to get that out on a PSA, please use the pickup drop-off for that purpose and park there if you're waiting or using your phone. Because eventually the drop arms go live, and and it's tracking cars going in and out. It helps us keep track of everything. So, any other questions?
I just had, not a question, but a comment. I just want to compliment you on establishing this fee for the airport. I was very impressed when I read through there and saw that there were fees for usage space, for the simulator, hangars, et cetera. It's been long overdue and greatly appreciate that, so thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. And just, being fiscally responsible, in addition, this revenue could potentially help us with grant matches, like I said, that otherwise may not be eligible for specific funding, but there are other discretionary grants that come out every so often, and if we have some extra leverage to match those, then it helps us, and the FA is starting to see that Cortez is getting stuff done, and they're more willing to help us, and the state as well. So we're in the 21st century, almost. We're getting there.
So this is $1 to $4. Do we need to decide?
I'm sorry, say again?
So, okay, so it's $1 for an hour, up to $4 for then
So if you're parked there for 3 hours, your first hour is free, you're paying $2. Okay, and if you're up there past that first day, max of 7 days, it's whatever that after an hour to 7 days is $4.
Okay, that makes more sense.
So it has a max, so you could easily price gouge people doing that. But if you didn't do that, you could accumulate hourly rates. So the system's designed to max out at $4.
Okay.
Oh. Any other questions?
Madam Mayor, I move the council approve resolution number 21, series 2024, a resolution approving the Cortez Municipal Airport schedule of fees and charges.
Second.
Motion made by Lewis and seconded by Kiefhoffer.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Brule. Dobry.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Haven.
Aye.
Randall. Medina.
Aye. Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Council.
All right, we're moving on to 7F on our agenda, resolution number 23, series 2024. A resolution approving the mill levy for 2025, presented by Kelly Koski, our Director of Finance.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Every year, the City of Cortez certifies to the Montezuma County Board of Commissioners the mill levy to be collected for property taxes on behalf of the city. As part of the mill levy certification, an inflation factor of 5.215% was used, and that is an inflation factor that is set by DOLA. For the calendar year, the city is requesting a total of $129,578 be collected by Montezuma County, and that is an increase over 2024 by $7,320. I'd really like to let the county know that I certainly do appreciate their timeliness in receiving their finalized numbers to us this year. This will be the first year since I worked for the City of Cortez that we've been able to do the mill levy certification and the resolution all at the same time. So big thumbs up to Montezuma County this year. Thank you very much. Staff recommends that council approve resolution number 23, series 2024, setting for the 25 budget year to county commissioners of the Montezuma County, Colorado tax levies and certification of the 2024 tax levies for property taxes. Are there any questions?
Does Robert need to say anything? This isn't like a conflict for you?
No.
All right. Hearing none, thank you very much.
Thanks, Kelly. All right, do we have a motion?
I move that council approve resolution number 23, series 2024, a resolution certifying the 2024 mill levy for the 2025 budget year to the Board of County Commissioners of Montezuma County, Colorado.
Second.
Motion made by Sproul and seconded by Lewis.
Randall. Aye. Haven.
Aye.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Lewis.
Aye.
Brule.
Yes.
Medina.
Aye. All right, we're going to move on to 8 on our agenda, draft resolutions and ordinances. We have none. So 9 on our agenda is city attorney report.
No report, Madam Mayor.
Great. Okay, we'll move on to 10 on our agenda, city manager's report.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. The following is my report for the period. I've had the opportunity to attend the Shield 616 event this past Monday, Monday, December 2nd. The organization awarded our 30 police officers, each with angle iron ballistic vests, in the front of a packed room of law enforcement, their family, and the community. These vests offer the best protection that can be withstand fire from rifles. Each year, Shield 616 chooses a department to gift body armor to, and this year they chose the Cortez Police Department after the death of Sergeant Michael Moran. Over the years, Shield 616 has helped protect 8,357 first responders across 360 agencies in 34 states. Secondly, our new directors, Beth Edson, who will be our new library director, and Casey Simpson, general services director, will both start next Monday, December 16th. We're very much looking forward to them joining our team finally. Also, I wanted to report into the council that the lane lines on Empire have now been corrected. According to our public works director, the bike lane markings will be added in the spring, since it'll be a better time for the paint to adhere to the roadway. Excuse me. Also, the temporary road work has been completed that will, hopefully withstand the winter on West 7th Street. That concludes my report, pending any questions.
Thank you. All right, move on to 11 on the agenda, city council committee report. 11A is the mayor's report on a workshop. We had no workshop tonight, so we'll move on to B, other board reports. We'll start with Councilmember Kefauver.
Yes, Madam Mayor. The Parks and Recreation Forestry Advisory Board met on Thursday, December 5th at 3 p.m. We had subcommittee reports, mostly from the Recreation User Group. We had a really robust discussion of the 2024 event assessment from Asia Lynn. We are directed to give input to Creighton regarding the Parks and Rec Master Plan scope. And we discussed some housekeeping things at the end of the year, the meeting times, days, the 2025 calendar. And our chairperson will remain the same. And that's pretty much what we got through.
Thank you. Robert? Okay. Okay, we'll move on our agenda. So 12 other items of business. 12A is council discussion on council rules of procedure regarding remote attendance to council meetings. All right, this was brought up, was that during a workshop, or no, during our meeting last time. We wanted to talk about this, especially with Mayor Pro Tem DeHaven going on maternity leave soon, the rest of us traveling or potentially being out of town, but still wanting to participate during meetings. So go ahead.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, we've done a little bit of research on this, trying to come up with some ideas and some, what is possible and what's legal. Our city attorney, Pat Coleman, has a bit of material to share with the council.
Yes, in looking at this item, of course, the first thing I looked at is it legal by state statute or the state constitution, and remote participation by a council member is not prohibited by either the state laws. Then we go to the city charter, and the city charter, the provision that regulates this issue was last amended in 1987, and I'm assuming in 19...
Before we were born.
Yeah, 1987, they weren't anticipating video conferences, or at least they weren't in common practice. But in any event, the language in the city charter, it's Article 3, Section 4, states that the council shall meet regularly twice each month on such days as the council by written resolution shall prescribe at City Hall. So the question then becomes, and the ordinance that governs the council's activities also states at City Hall. And so the question then becomes, if you participate virtually, are you present at City Hall? And I don't think the code or the charter necessarily clarifies that issue, and it may be a subjective call for the council. In any event, I would suggest that if the council wanted to proceed with some sort of virtual participation, that you amend the Article 1, Section 2-3 procedures to clarify that participation virtually constitutes a council member being at City Hall. You know, it's again, it's more of a subjective issue, and some of you may feel comfortable with that determination. Others may question whether that's appropriate. But in order to change the charter language, again, that's something that has to be done by vote of the people, and you know, we're going to be pursuing that here in 2025 with other amendments. It can be done either at a special election or at the general election. You would have to call for the election at least 30 days prior to the date of the election. You know, whether or not you want to do a one-off to change the charter, I'm not sure that is a practical solution, but it is something that would be available to you. In any event, my recommendation would be that if you chose to do it, you would want to specifically state in the ordinance that a council member participating virtually would be considered attending at City Hall, to clarify so that there is no question that you're violating the charter. We looked at a number of different options, because this is pretty common. A lot of communities are allowing virtual participation. They have a lot of different rules, and I think Mr. Sanders may go in a little more detail, but it's not a two-paragraph change to our ordinance. I would suggest that it's a pretty in-depth list of rules and regulations as to how often you can do it, you know, whether you can participate in executive sessions virtually, and different rules and regulations regarding timing, prior notice. There are a lot of different issues that many communities have developed for their rules and regulations, and so I think it's not a simple procedure of just saying, yeah, you can do it. would be my suggestion.
Okay, well, before we get into the minutia of like how and all those things, I guess I just want to hear from the rest of the council about how they feel about this idea in general.
I'm very much in favor of it. I think we're way behind the times. Although I was pleased to hear when Patrick was giving details, I think there needs to be a limitation on how often you can attend virtually, and Just to throw out for the sake of discussion, I would say no more than 25%. That'd be about maybe 6 meetings tops for the course of the year.
3 months, yeah.
And in regards to executive session, I thought about this before it was brought up. I would be opposed to having a council member attend executive session virtually. There's no control over privacy.
And I would add on executive sessions, council members have the option of listening to the recording, assuming there is a recording. Now, as you know, if the purpose of the executive session is to receive legal advice, then the session is not recorded. But for all other executive sessions, it's recorded, and those recordings by statute are maintained for 90 days. So if you are participating virtually, you have the option of, after the executive session, listening to the recording. Certainly, and if there is something in a legal advice executive session, the virtually appearing council member could come meet with me separately, and I can summarize what was discussed in the legal portion of it.
Well, I would agree with supporting the virtual attendance, and I want to push back on the executive session disagreement because we have people call in on executive session frequently and lead discussions from outside of council. So how are we securing executive session during that time, and why would that be any different than having a council member remotely?
Yeah, and looking at what some of the other communities have done, obviously the security is the concern, and they one of them said that the person that's appearing remotely has to swear and affirm that they are the only person in the room that is listening to the conversation, because obviously, unless you move your camera around the room, you're not going to know who's in the room with that person. But it does involve a little bit of trust, but obviously executive sessions in general require that there's trust amongst the council members that they're not going to run out and disclose to other third parties what was discussed. But some of them have said no executive sessions, others have said yes, and basically they get an affirmation from the council member that they are the only one in the room.
I am not opposed to having the ability to attend virtually. I do believe that it should be limited to 10% of all yearly meetings, though. So that would put it at about a two meeting per year. The other point that needs to be brought out is our quasi-judicial hearings. Those are, I think, very sensitive, very important. We're provided with information. I think that it would not be appropriate to participate in a quasi-judicial situation virtually. So that's because we're hearing a lot of public testimony. We're provided with papers, documents at that time. So that would be one consideration on how that can happen. I'm not saying it can't, but I think it's definitely a consideration that has to happen. I think we're here to do the people's business. I think we need to be here as much as we possibly can, and I think 2 times a year would be reasonable.
I agree that we're here to do the people's business. I think that, I don't think, I mean, and especially from COVID, it didn't work well doing hybrid meetings. It did not work well at all, and I think to have our meetings work smoothly and properly and to be accessible to to the community who's in the room, I think that we should be here for our meetings. And I don't have an issue with executive session because it doesn't have the same public component. But as far as the regular meeting and voting in regular meetings, I don't think we should be remote for that.
Yeah, I guess my feelings on it really are that I don't have a problem with people attending remotely. There probably should be some sort of limit, but I think we need to remember that, everyone up here was elected by the citizens of Cortez to represent them. And if it means that they attend virtually, I think that's better than not attending at all. So, personally, I do not have a problem with it. And I think it's life circumstances. I don't feel like anyone that's on council now would take advantage of a remote attendance policy.
Go ahead, Dennis.
I guess you've heard from everybody but me. Today's my 48th wedding anniversary today, but here I am. I don't have I think it's all right virtually as long as it's limited in amount of time that they can do it. However, if it ever becomes a problem, I think we need to address it. The background noise, the people not being able to hear, or the councilman that's attending. There's a lot of unintended consequences that could become of it, and that concerns me. But overall, I think if we limited it, it would be okay.
I do also want to say that I think, Pat, you mentioned, a special election, I think, for charter, changing the charter. I don't think that's appropriate for something like this. That's kind of costly, and it seems like it should be rolled into a broader effort to change things within the charter.
And just to clarify, I'm a little confused. Do we have to change the charter for this remote attendance, or is that just an ordinance?
Well, as I said, the language says that council shall hold its meetings at City Hall, and it doesn't get into specifics about whether that means you can appear virtually. Does that constitute at City Hall? And it's more of a subjective judgment call. But the code, which you can amend by ordinance, has the same language. And I would recommend that if you choose to go forward with allowing virtual appearance, that we clarify in the code that appearing virtually constitutes participating at a meeting at City Hall.
So we could move forward without the public vote. We can change.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, I'm, like I said, I'm for the remote attendance with limitations. I think executive session is fine remote. We already do things remote in there. I don't like the idea of a limitation for quasi-judicial things. All of that stuff can be handled remotely too. And if we have systems that work properly, which we're about to get some new monitors and things like that, hopefully there won't be kinks that we had 4 years ago or during COVID. And the paperwork and public can be all transmitted digitally. You can hear the public comments. Yeah, I just this would be a really helpful thing for me particularly, because nowhere either do we address parental or maternity leave or extenuating life circumstances that would cause longer stints of absence in council. So, yeah.
I have a question regarding what the other council think about having a limit on the number of council members that are virtual. Because if we're supposed to be keeping the meeting in the city hall, I mean, that might play a role in it. I just wanted to throw out the idea, see what anybody had to say on that one.
Yes, Councilmember, Mayor and Councilmember Randall, that's exactly what I wanted to address is there also probably needs to be some limitation on the presiding officer does need to be present. Trying to do that remotely is just going to absolutely be horrific. So I would suggest that, but also, yes, I was just going to say we need to be thinking about all the possible scenarios. One of those would be, what if everybody wants to join remotely? And how does that look? And do we even have the capacity to do that? I think we need to get more information from our IT director on do we even have the capacity to do that accurately. But I think we need to think it through. Also, you know, reality is it's not going to be perfect, whether it's by phone, by, you know, WebEx, whatever we plan to use. The sound and quality and everything is going to be clunky. It's just not that easy.
I think I've got to back up Councilman Randall on the quasi-judicial, because last time we had one, we're a jury and we're hearing information and we're presented with evidence at that time. And if we have somebody remotely, they can't view this evidence unless it's faxed to them, and we have to wait. And I think a quasi-judicial is just something that shouldn't be someone on the outside listening in and trying to make a decision. And also, as Councilman Kiefhofer said, and I think we addressed this already, it doesn't have to be a charter so that we don't have to have a special election for that. I think that would be silly because we're looking for the benefit of the council, not the city of Cortez. And so.
Dennis, I think you're thinking of it in the 1980s version, because like I attend meetings virtually that are partially in person, partial virtual all the time. I'm not just like sitting in, I'm participating, active participant in everything. That information, like we can email quickly. We don't need to fax it. If we had to fax it, the library would have to be open for me to get it, and then that would be a whole other issue. But yeah, so I think there's a lot of ways where you're not just sitting in, so reframing that mindset might.
I won't take offense to the fact that you're calling me an old codger and I'm not up to date. But there is issues. We've had issues with these microphones. They didn't work. We've had issues with the television. They didn't work. And if we have a councilman on the outside during a judicial meeting, quasi-judicial meeting, and it doesn't work because of that council member, I think that's unfair. It's unfair to the people that are in the process. I think it's unfair. It's for our benefit rather than the benefit of the people we represent.
But if the point of allowing virtual attendance is to allow people in extenuating life circumstances or other things to be able to participate, then you're putting a big limitation on that.
I was just saying quasi-judicial. The other, like I said earlier, I'm not against it. I think we have to have limitations, but a quasi-judicial is completely different, and in my point of view.
I would say that I participate in a number of board meetings via Zoom, and they do screen shares of documents that are only located in one location, but numerous people are appearing via Zoom at multiple locations, and they can all look at the same document. So technologically, it's not that difficult. There would be a delay if people handed out materials at the public hearing. We would have to have a scanner close by, and so that it would add some time delay, but it's certainly not impossible.
I was going to suggest, City Manager Sanders brought up the point, there's many things that are involved here, and what I would recommend is maybe we look at some city councils that have had this in place and what restrictions they have, plus and minuses of that operation instead of trying to start from scratch.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilmember Lewis, we've done a lot of that, but the one that, and we've presented that to you tonight, that gives you a pretty good broad view of who's doing it large on the front range, and then a couple of other places as well that are smaller. The one thing that as I look through there that I did not see anywhere was how many council members can do it. I mean, there is a requirement for advance notice, so there's 24 hours advance notice. I would suggest we do that because we need that so that we can set things up. But I do think the council needs to discuss just how many can actually take advantage of this at any one given meeting. Because I can just see it happening at some point if we don't discuss it now. And it would help us bring you something a little more ready to plug in.
I would say like 2 to 3 max.
2 or 3.
Okay, 2.
And if more want to do it, how do we decide who gets to do that? There needs to be a mechanism for that. It might be just as easy as first come, first serve.
Yeah.
But I just don't want us, myself included, to be in a position to pick winners and losers on that. So perhaps we say first come, first serve, and that's just the rule if that's the case, if two or more have done it. So 2 is what I'm hearing?
Yeah, 2.
Okay.
Okay, and I just want to share my opinions with this. I'm going to push back on the idea that being virtual is compromising our duties. I think, like Councilmember DeHaven said, that is allowing us to still participate when we're gone or when we have extenuating circumstances where we can't be here physically. I missed the November meeting. I watched the meeting live. I read the packet. I talked to City Manager Drew Sanders. I did everything that I would have normally done while here except vote or get paid for it. And I think being a working person, we are going to have times where we're out of town or have other things, come up, or health issues, but we still want to, go through with our duties and participate and be part of this system. So I would suggest that we don't really limit it what we can do, and we see how the virtual aspect goes. I mean, the municipal court is having virtual hearings. So, to say that we can't do that for quasi-judicial hearings, I don't think that that's a strong enough argument. And we can always circle back in 5 or 6 months and say hey, this really isn't working well. Let's revisit it, or let's change some things, or let's just completely do away with this. But I think it's worth trying, and we can limit it to 2, and we can allow participation in every aspect, and then just see how that goes.
I have a question about what you. I have a question about your thoughts on that. Are you saying you're limiting it to 2 council members or 2 absences a year?
Oh, 2 council members. I think the absence, 3 months or 6 meetings. Because I think it's in our charter or one of our resolution, you can completely miss up to 3 months worth of meetings and not be kicked off council, essentially. I'm not quite sure what that language is there, but I remember we looked at it the last time Councilmember DeHaven was pregnant. Just worried about how many meetings she'd miss and if we needed to make a resolution to allow her to miss more than 3 months. So I think doing 3 months or 6 meetings virtually is a fine maximum as well. I think 2 meetings is too limiting. And then as the chair, I wouldn't expect to run the meeting if I'm tapping in virtually. So I think that makes sense as well.
Well, I'd have to disagree on unlimited or whatever. I think the American people, and I would say that Cortez is a pretty good representation of the American people. I think that in the last few years we've seen the outcry over people working virtually. And I understand it's different from working virtually to what we're doing on the council because we're in front of people and we're accountable. I just don't think it's an appropriate thing for it to become a lifestyle or a work style for the council to be meeting virtually. I think it should be seldom, that it happens, but we're accepting that it does happen, but it should be seldom. I think we have a responsibility to be here, and I hear your point. I get it. I'm not calling you irresponsible. I'm just saying that's what we're here for, and the people expect us to be here. So that's my personal feeling.
I guess I don't disagree with that. And like I said before, I'm probably maybe too trusting of people, but I think that there's a difference between a life circumstance and if somebody decides to go on a vacation and they're in Aruba and they can call in. That to me is not an excused absence, so to speak. That's not an appropriate use of what we're talking about here. I can say, for example, if one of my parents became ill, I would probably have to go and be there for a month. I might miss 2 meetings because they live so far away and they're in pretty bad shape. To me, that would be something that's excusable because that's a life circumstance. I, like I said before, really trust in the people on council not to abuse or misuse it. I would hope that they would realize the difference between a life circumstance and I just happened to be on vacation, for example, and it's easy for me to call in. I don't think that's appropriate. I think that you should plan on missing that meeting and not attend the meeting. And that's just my opinion. I think that, and I don't know that we need to define life circumstances either. I trust the people on council to be appropriate with the usage of a policy like this.
Well, and every meeting I've missed was for work, which is, I'm accountable to my job, which is the priority, but I also take this role very seriously, even though it's a volunteer position, so I want to still be able to participate as well. And I think that that's kind of a morality issue of like that we can, if we feel like people are abusing it, we can talk about that as well. But I trust and respect everyone on council, and we're still going to be together for the next year and a half, so I don't believe any of us would abuse it.
Okay, council, if I can maybe get some clarification then as we move forward so that we can bring something back as comprehensive as possible. So if I'm understanding correctly, executive sessions are okay. We do need to give advance notice of 24 hours. Quasi-judicial is okay. And we want to limit the number of members who can remote work or come in remotely to 2 on a first-come, first-served basis. The presiding officer must be present. And it seems like we're up in the air. I've heard everything from 6 to a percentage to how many, if we can maybe get a little clarity on where we should go with the number per year.
I guess what if
per calendar year.
What if we combined, like, you can miss or do virtual meetings up to 6 meetings a year?
I think I would argue to raise because we've hearing 6 and 2. What do people feel about like 3 or 4? I think 2 is too limiting.
And I would suggest that as this will be an ordinance, you'll have to have a public hearing to discuss this again, and we can certainly give you 2 or 3 options on some of these issues so that you can debate them again, have time to think. You don't necessarily need to, ask us to give you a firm and final version at the next meeting. So if there is some continued disagreement, you don't necessarily need to resolve it tonight, although it helps. The more concise we have, the better we can get this done in 2 meetings rather than 3.
I think we should hash it out as much as we need to, as much as we can, so that you guys don't do work and then come back to us and then we say we don't take it. I think that's a problem going back and forth.
Yeah, so, and we feel a sense of urgency. We recognize that there's an impending life circumstance coming up, and we would rather not this take up that entire time, and which, if we don't kind of make it a little more concise, then that's what we're on track to do. She'll be back before it matters.
So then maybe 4? Is that the compromise?
Yeah, I heard a compromise.
So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 for 4?
Okay. I think that gives us our marching orders. Anything else, council?
No, good discussion.
All right, thanks, council.
Okay, we'll move on to 12B on our agenda, executive session. Do we have a motion? Does someone have a motion?
I don't have a motion on here, but I move that council enter executive session for the purposes of determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and/or instructing negotiators concerning the possible sale of real property by the city pursuant to CRS Section 24-64024E, and to discuss the possible sale of real property by the city pursuant to CRS Section 24-64024A.
Second.
Motion made by Dobry, seconded by DeHaven.
Dobry,
Aye.
Brule,
Yes.
Lewis,
Aye.
DeHaven,
Aye.
Randall,
Aye.
Boffer,
Aye.
Aye. Okay. could watch it through the window. Yeah, right. That'll make you feel old. Okay. All right, it is still December 10th, 2024, and the time is 9:45 p.m. The executive session has concluded and council has reconvened into open session. Those persons participating in executive session were myself, Mayor Rachel Medina, Mayor Pro Tem Lydia DeHaven, and council members Matthew Kiefhofer, Dennis Spruill, Bill Lewis, April Randall, and Robert Dobry. Also participating were City Manager Drew Sanders and City Attorney Patrick Coleman. No adoption of any proposed policy, position, resolution, rule, regulation, or formal action occurred during the executive session. If any members of council or a member of the public believes that the subject matter of the executive session was not statutorily authorized, or that decisions or discussions that occurred in executive session strayed from the announced subject matter, please speak up now. Seeing none, we will move on to the next agenda item. Number 13, public participation. There's no limit on the number of speakers and no overall time limit. Seeing no public in the audience, we'll move on to number 14 on our agenda, adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Madam Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Lewis and seconded by Dobry.
Dobry?
Aye.
Lewis?
Aye.
Kiefhofer?
Aye.
Randall?
Aye.
Spruill?
Yes.
Haven?
Aye.
Dina?
Aye. All right, this is our last meeting of the year, so Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays to everybody. Oh, well, you guys have a joint meeting next week, so. Well, I'm going to be out of town, but I'm going to call in.